Welcome to Talk Live. It's Tuesday, April 29th, 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong.
9 p.m. in the DMV. I'm Sam Giacinto, and you're listening to Tech Talk Live. Welcome to the show. Chat or call in with your tech news. And as always, lots to talk about this week. We have some space junk.
We do. We have some space junk, a super awesome Barebones new truck. But before we get started, we have to mention our sponsor. Tech Talk Live loves BeforeSunset.ai. BeforeSunset.ai is your AI productivity superhero. Use code TechTalkLive for 3 months free and conquer your quests with Before Sunset.
Yeah, give it a check out. Help you organize your tasks. And in the modern world, God knows we need it.
And this is, a great use case for AI here, managing your to-do lists and helping you be more productive. So definitely check out Before Sunset. And don't forget, use code TechTalkLive for 3 months free. So let's get into it. So this is a super interesting, I hadn't heard of this Slate Auto company before you brought it to my attention, Sam. So let's dig in. Let's investigate.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, Slate's been making some waves recently. So let's take it from the top. So Slate is essentially a new American electric automobile manufacturer with this quirky mini American-made pickup truck with no paint, no stereo, and no obnoxious touchscreen. So a lot of the creature comforts, quote unquote, are forgone for something that is perhaps a little bit more utilitarian. Okay, kind of stripped down to the bare bones. We're talking a $20,000 price tag after federal incentives that you can customize, that really kind of encourages you to bring your own equipment. It seats two. It has a bed big enough to hold a sheet of plywood. Only does 150 miles on its charge. Only comes in gray. Bring your own Bluetooth speaker. And it's the bare minimum of what a modern electric car can be. But it's sparked a lot of conversation for perhaps the alternative approach to developing a vehicle, kind of with a minimalist design and a DIY purpose. Go cheap, but have something that's incredibly customizable and low cost, for both the manufacturer and the consumer. So that's kind of what is making this such a unique and newsworthy topic. Is that,
And so it
20 grand.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Well, it looks like $50 locks in your reservation, so you can reserve this truck. I wonder if, the price will actually be under 20,000. They say the expected price is. So I think it's a great alternative.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest point, right? Is this actually going to happen? And that's, again, kind of the biggest question from this whole launch. It's again very quirky, huge splash, but will this be another Tesla Roadster situation? I mean, this is, it's key. I mean, there are many headstones of failed EV startups. Fisker, shot back into the ethos of the EV space and rapidly burned out. Rivian seems to be doing somewhat all right. And then you have Lucid kind of plotting along. It's not exactly an easy industry. And it's something that perhaps they're hoping, to essentially have a novel approach to get people excited. I mean, that part of it's working. So now again, we kind of come down to the hardest part of any product launch, which is delivering what you promised. And
Yeah.
we've talked about that a lot before, even with software, right? With Apple Intelligence, it's all about delivering what is promised. So
Yeah.
it's something where, and again, it's rather unique. I think one feature we have to talk about is the lack of colors. The Slate
Well,
comes in one color, gray,
and so
and
you
it's
can keep it like that. Yeah.
well, I mean, you
But
can obviously
they
paint
have
it,
wraps.
or yeah, I
Well,
mean, you
but that's
can.
an interesting use. Maybe because people are already wrapping their cars. So I think it's cool that they offer that as like, hey, it comes in one color, but you can just wrap your truck. I like it. It keeps costs low for the company, right? And they pass that along to the consumer.
Well, exactly. I mean, and this is also kind of beyond, it's beyond the paint really, because the novelty is that, all the body panels are essentially composite plastic. There's no paint whatsoever. The color is, unique through the entire panel. It's not a metal panel for all the body parts. So they don't need a paint shop. There's no stamping required. There's no, so this kind of lean approach to manufacturing the vehicle, the bare bones kind of nature means that they've simplified it so much that, you know, at least the goal, as far as, the founder says, is to cash flow very shortly after production. This isn't going to be one of those Lucids or Rivians or Teslas that burns, piles of money for years before coming relevant. So that's their aim, and that's perhaps the novelty for the investors. Um, and honestly, it's attracted a lot of big names too. I mean, we have our good and loyal friend Jeff Bezos throwing some cash in the ring. Um, whether they don't have a direct connection to Amazon, but there's sort of perhaps a tinge of competition between our friendly billionaires to kind of maybe throw some weight behind something that is attempting to disrupt the industry, at least from a supply chain perspective, right? Because in more ways than not, perhaps, Tesla still is a traditional car company. I mean, they're, the parts and components and, features kind of align with what has traditionally been expected, a massive, and perhaps, maybe at first, right, a little outlandish, right? These massive displays, which are more commonplace. So, Tesla maybe set the industry trend and, utilized, more traditional approaches, painting aluminum body panels, for instance, and sort of all the pain that came with that. I mean, there was a period in time of, I believe in the late 2010s, where, they were having trouble painting their cars correctly, right? So for Slate, it's just sort of like, what if we don't paint it at all? Um, you know, uh, so, and I think something that's also worth mentioning is going back to the personalization aspect. You can buy an SUV upgrade kit, which bolts onto the back of the truck, adding rear seats and seat belts, um, in a package you can install in your driveway. So it's very much like a,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of buy and mod your car type of, you know, it's DIY. You can do what you want, do what you need to with it. Um,
And so
so
it's what we have to say though. We do have to mention it's an electric car. It's an electric truck, and that being said, 150 miles is great for in the city or for short trips, but this is probably not if you're trying to get to your destination as fast as possible. Probably not the truck you would want to go with. But that being said, if you're, maybe an adventurer, you like going camping, you like going outdoors, fishing, hiking, all things like that. I think this sort of a truck would be a great alternative to, maybe even a used gas car or truck. And so I think that, it's compatible with level 1, 2, and 3 chargers. So that means 120 volts, which is your standard outlet at home. Level 2, which is 240, which is like your dryer port. So you can charge a little faster, full charge in 4 to 8 hours. And 480-volt level 3 public charging setups, which again, like Tesla, is supercharger, very similar to that sort of, and charge point network. So of course, you'll get a charge. It says you'll get a charging cable to work, and it supports the most widely available public networks in the country. So I would assume ChargePoint and the like. So yeah, it's a neat solution. You can get there, but if you're in a rush, you will be stopping a lot. So, but again, for $20,000, or they claim less, yeah, you can't really beat that for a new electric truck these days. And honestly, a lot of people, it's worth noting. I mean, I don't know if we can find stats on it, but a lot of people wrap their Tesla. I think it voids like the warranty, and I think it might potentially risk, damaging or messing up the sensor functionality. And so I do think it's worth, noting that, this is an interesting approach where they're almost encouraging you, hey, if you want to personalize it, hey, wrapping's the way to go. And we don't actually paint the car. So, it just comes in one color. If you want to customize it, great. If you want to keep it simple and bare bones like it comes, do that as well. And I think they're keeping it simple. I mean, I again, with no sound system, they're selling phone and speaker mounts. So that
So
looks
that
like a cool accessory.
no, and something worth mentioning beyond, obviously it's cool to have your own sound bar and phone. But one thing that stuck out for me personally is that, and obviously have to verify it, but 70% of repeat warranty claims are based on the infotainment system. Just simply because there's so much technology in cars that have sort of created a very unstable environment as far as, and we've experienced this. I remember, drive around LA in your Tesla. We had to reboot the infotainment system one time because the screen went black. It's just sort of like, okay, like hopefully thankfully it was just a reboot, right? And not a hardware issue, allegedly, right? But it's like it's
Right.
things like that where those are very costly things to replace when you have something that has billions of dollars of UI and UX research right in your pocket that you can
Yeah.
just mount on your dashboard.
And
Um,
people are familiar, yeah, already using their phone. I mean, yeah, if you've got an older car, just mount your phone. I mean, people were doing this for the past 10 years, 5 years. People were buying GPS, systems even before the iPhones, right? From like Garmin and the like. So I think it is interesting, yeah, that they're going back to that because they're recognizing, even take, it is kind of sad, Fisker looked like they were on to it, a good start maybe, but they didn't succeed with the ocean. The ocean is what killed them. But I mean, they were really attacked by their software, and maybe the quality of their hardware. But again, when I look at something like the Slate truck, I feel like you can't be disappointed with the price, right? Like, so it's really going to be interesting to see the quality of this sort of vehicle because, again, for the price, your expectation should not be a luxury car or truck, right? Like, this is bare bones, customize it. It doesn't come with anything else, but you have a way to get from point A to point B in a new vehicle. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think how the quality compares, to to something. So you know, because I think Fisker had that problem, with physical, like, with, I mean, paint. I mean, not even really it's a paint problem. I think it's just like panel gaps people talk about all the time. Again, when you're complaining about how a car is constructed, and it's
Well,
like,
yeah. I mean, it's an indication of assembly quality, right? Because you have tolerances and things you expect from the final product. And that's, I mean, yeah, people care about panel gaps because, I mean, visually, it's what, other than the paint, it's kind of what frames the panel on the car. Visually, if a picture frame looks crooked, that's the first thing you notice. You don't really even look at what's in the picture frame. You see that it's crooked. So that's kind of for that same kind of phenomenon that happens. I think that's kind of the reason people are, you know, perhaps you know, concerned about with the, at least the body issues and whatnot. Um,
yeah, no, this will be really cool to see how it goes. And again, the website is slate.auto. So if anyone wants to check it out, slate.auto, get on the list. If you're in the market for a new truck and you want an electric SUV, it looks like they have another model. I don't know if we want to get into that, but it was worth checking it out for sure. This looks pretty cool.
oh, and another one last thing to note on this, unless you have any other points, is the the repair and sort of right to repair and the DIY and the ability to perform warranty service on the car yourself um, is sort of a big kind of paradigm shift from the existing auto industry, right? You have a warranty claim, you take it to the Tesla dealership, you take it to the Ford dealership. There's no self repair of a warranty claim that keeps your warranty. But it seems like Slate is incentivizing people to perform this maintenance themselves. Um, Unless, it's, part of something that's hazardous, they're going to have videos online to kind of detail any sort of modification or repair you could possibly desire. And seemingly they're going to partner with a sort of a nationwide chain for repairs that owners may not be comfortable with doing themselves. That's still a subsection of people. Not everybody wants to, but you should have the option to. So you'll have the option to repair yourself, but also take this into, you know, like a Meineke or a Jiffy Lube or some, some sort of. Apparently, they're partnering. Details not disclosed yet, but they're partnering with a nationwide chain to make those repairs accessible. Whereas, I know at least Tesla specifically, just because they've had to ramp up their physical presence. Sometimes it's difficult to get your car repaired from lack of options for service. And so that's kind of the opposite extreme of a manufacturer regulating all the repairs versus a manufacturer kind of liberating all the repairs and sort of saying, we'll partner with a nationwide chain, we'll give you the tools and the videos and the instructions on how to fix the car yourself if you're comfortable. And I think that's another kind of paradigm shift that is also really unique. um, and I know
Yeah.
you got your Tesla repaired at one point, and it didn't sound
Oh
like that
yeah.
the
Well, I
best
think
experience for you
it,
personally.
it
um,
I can't imagine people having a good experience with that. And but also, to play devil's advocate, it's going to be very fascinating since this truck seems to be designed to be user serviceable. How are the guides going to be? Like, how easy really is it? Like, if you're comfortable, what, with a screwdriver, or what, going to buy like some type of wrench, or like drill attachment to, like, I just, it makes me wonder, like, how truly easy it will be, because I do think, sure, yeah, if you're willing to do it and save them time, money, and a hassle of dealing with a repair shop, but like I know that it's been ingrained in us for so long, I think, that hey, if your car needs maintenance, go back to the dealership, go back to where you bought it, go back to a place, a mechanic that is familiar with servicing this. I mean, even CarMax, has a great maintenance plan if you buy a used car from them. So I think people are kind of not as familiar with, wait, how can I repair my car? Can I really order that part like I can on Amazon? I just get it in 2 days, maybe potentially. Are these parts really going to be able, if I need a new mirror, can I really just put my new mirror by screwing it on myself? Like to what degree will it really be user serviceable? That's what it'll be interesting to see, because apparently it seems to be from the ground up, designed simply, and designed also for you to be able to service it yourself. So yeah, really cool that they're starting with this. And I mean, you can't beat $20,000 for this type of, for any vehicle, and it's 2025. So yeah, for a new electric truck and SUV, pretty impressive if
Well,
it
and
actually comes out.
well, and the kind of answer, at least the founder of the company kind of commented, if really any repair that doesn't deal with the high voltage system, just because that could hurt you realistically. Not everything, probably is a good idea for people to repair. But everything except that should have instructions online. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Um, you know, essentially it's, I guess the only two requirements are if you're not going to quote break the vehicle and you're not going to injure yourself. So those are the two basically just something to really screw it up, or, I guess shock yourself in essence.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Because also you don't I don't think people anticipate, oh, I'm gonna break this vehicle when I repair it until it happens. So these are the things where it's like, to what degree, do you know what I mean? Like, can you repair it yourself? So no, it'll be very interesting to see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Kind of
Apple,
uh, a
oh
huge
yeah,
question mark. But we'll move on to something maybe also with a huge question mark, right? Apple.
I know. So yeah, Apple might have a new invention to finally stop lens flaring in iPhone photos. So when you've got a bright light source like the sun, it's very common to get a glare because of how the lens is constructed. But apparently, there's, I guess, some rumors that Apple's testing a new camera coating to prevent this.
So
It's weird though, because I don't know where we're at with this. Looks like Apple might have filed a patent.
yeah, so and maybe to explain it a little bit more, and I'm sure you've noticed it too, Jack, is if you take a photo with your iPhone at night, and there are sources of light that are bright and kind of point source. So think about a street lamp or a light bulb off in the distance. You'll notice in your photo, and once you see it, you cannot unsee this. So buyer beware, right? But there are kind of little green refractions that
Mhm.
come off of and I don't know if I can even pull up a picture to demonstrate honestly. But once you notice it, it's going to be so hard to kind of unsee it. Any sort of nighttime photo that is dark in the background with, street lamps or any sort of like, will have this kind of awkward looking lens flare to it.
Mhm.
Um, and the reality is, that occurs because there's a very small distance inside the iPhone's camera, and the light essentially bounces around when it's from a single point source, um, in the surrounding area. Trying to find a good example of this. That's not a video I can show you. But what this patent aims to do is sort of like the anti-reflective coating on the new MacBooks, sort of with a similar methodology, right, is going to stop the light from kind of bouncing around between, the 5 to 7 layer camera sensor that, is really smushed into something that's, less than a centimeter thick. So that's kind of why we have these sort of, artifacts that you'll see. But um, people describe them as kind of green. They're like green faint lights in the background of your image. Um, so look around for them. This is something that's been rumored. It was rumored for the 16 Pro, but it seems like it got pushed back again um, for this fall. Apple has a patent on it, but it's kind of one. They're really trying to eliminate something that is a feature of the geometry of the phone. So this is kind of it's a pretty big deal. Because the iPhone will never have a focal length that's super long because it's a very thin device. So this, from a technological standpoint, is a huge breakthrough in that way, and we'll have to see. It's been rumored for over a year, but I guess new leaks have suggested that you know I guess at least between the patent office, having a recently published patent application for this fix, it may be coming for the iPhone 17. So, kind of rebooting those rumors um, for this fall. Um, but
Yeah, it looks
again,
cool.
it's still unclear. I'm reading into the leak itself now, but it's still unclear if it'll even be this fall. But I guess the patent recently came out for the optically absorptive gratings in its camera modules. So ultra thin layers with tiny geometric shapes to kind of absorb and diffuse light.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it does look like potentially this year, if that does not make it into the next generation of iPhones, it does look like there will be a 48 megapixel telephoto camera with a smaller zoom. So we also expect rumors that potentially Apple might also allow us to record in 8K for the first time. So that's pretty cool. We could also get a front facing camera with 24 megapixels. So I think those rumors are a little more likely. I feel like if they just filed a patent, actually getting that into development, testing, and development for iPhone 17. Personally, I don't predict it'll be in 17, probably 18. But I do feel like it's more likely that they do the 48 megapixel telephoto zoom and or 8K, also with the better front facing camera, because people are taking a lot of selfies and people do use the front facing camera for FaceTime and things like that. So I do think it would be nice to have the ability to take a larger resolution photo with your front facing camera. And we haven't really seen many improvements. Correct me if I'm wrong, but over the past few years, the cameras do get better every year, but it's primarily to the back, the rear cameras. We don't really see Apple focusing as much attention to the front facing camera. So, yeah, I mean, this is good to people who love selfies, love Snapchats, love,
yeah.
FaceTiming. Yeah, all this. So, yeah.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point about the 8K video recording. I guess, according to Bloomberg, I guess the iPhone 17 will be kind of a video year for the iPhone. I don't know if you remember the iPhone 13 when that came out, but they had this whole Hollywood production ad. It's like this was shot on the iPhone, and it was like some crazy, action scene essentially. And so maybe this will kind of have that same marketing, where it's used in like an extreme way to, film some desert Baja Mad Max type crap. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it seems as though, Apple's kind of held off until all of the three cameras on the phone are the same resolution, I guess, to provide a more consistent experience, as is very Apple. But also, I mean, this is going to gobble up storage. This isn't going to be something that's like easily um it's gonna take up a crap ton of storage. So I don't know like how practical this will really be. That
Yeah.
being said, I'm sure people will appreciate the option of it. And who knows, like maybe we'll even see better 4K recording as a result, right? Because again, 8K recording means you can record at 4K and have 4 pixels per pixel of 4K, essentially. So you can do some sort of sampling, you can average it out, you can do a little bit more video processing on it. So who knows? I mean, obviously, camera improvements across the board. And as you said, the selfie camera is a big deal. I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I use the rear camera more, but I also don't think I'm a typical phone user. So I don't know. I mean, I think I will say like I take a lot of selfies just because I have a long arm, so I can kind of frame the shot a little bit better. By
Oh
holding
yeah.
the phone up. So it is like it's hard to do that holding the phone with your rear cameras facing you because you can't. There's no viewfinder. I mean, for a functional reason, right? So that's big too. I mean, we all, we can all bash the selfie focused. But I think a front facing camera, for FaceTime and whatnot is certainly going to help, especially in low light situations. I've had a few low light FaceTime calls, right? And having a higher resolution camera will help with that, even if it's sampling a certain subsection of
Oh yeah.
the pixels and whatnot. But it's going to be perhaps another incremental upgrade year for the iPhone, but it's never a bad thing. If
Oh
it's
yeah.
not $4,000, I may get it. And my phone will be 4 years old, so it's about time that upgrading would actually make a measurable difference for somebody who cares about it. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think
No, no, I think you know what? I mean, I'm looking forward to a better front facing camera. You know, I think when people take photos, yes, I agree with you. Most people are taking it with the rear facing cameras and they do really get better each year, but it is about time, with all the video conferencing and it is nice to have a good resolution on your front facing camera. And it really does make a difference. But another thing also that I don't think gets talked about enough with the new iPhone 16s, I think the 16 Pros with the camera thing, um, that camera button. We talked about this off the show, but it's an antenna, and it actually is a pretty good one because I know somebody who has not the best Wi-Fi at home, and it is night and day from it comparing that iPhone with the much better antenna and that little camera bump to a cheap tablet, and it just night and day clear. When your router is far away, this is just again something that goes it's underappreciated when Apple makes these improvements. And so I think that these are the things you do notice when you've got an much older device that, hey, it really doesn't pick up a good signal, but actually the better antenna in the iPhone 16 lineup really does help with video call stability. And again, I know that we talk a little bit about Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and the next generation of Wi-Fi and the throughput. But a lot of people don't really talk about also on the device side, you need a good antenna to be receiving and transmitting that data when you're and a lot of people aren't thinking about the antenna that's in their device. So again, the front facing camera also overdue for an improvement. So, and yeah, 8K, I think Apple does support in apps like Filmic Pro, Kino, camera apps. You can connect with your USB-C port. You can connect an external hard drive and shoot onto that. And so again, you really can use your iPhone with those apps, with an external drive, and one of those little gimbals. You really can transform your camera, your iPhone camera, into a pretty capable, cinema camera that 5 years ago, would have been a red camera that's $25,000, $30,000.
Very fair.
And they
Yeah.
even have lens attachments. Those moment lenses. I mean, those have gotten really popular. I'm not familiar with another brand that sells them, but Moment, I think, was like kind of the original that came out with these. They're not Snap-on. They're not even magnetic, but they've got their own mounting system, and they're fully compatible with the iPhone lineup, the Pixel lineup, and I think Samsung, a couple Samsung phones as well. But yeah, these phone lenses, whether it's an 80 millimeter equivalent, whether it's a fisheye, an anamorphic lens. So yeah, I mean, Apple's always making camera improvements, but you're not really going to get the full experience if you're not shooting externally and with an app that really allows you to up that bit rate and the quality, because the built-in camera app is not really doing it. So just a few camera tips, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out later this year.
Very fair. And and as much as it pains me to say, because Apple uses this in all their marketing material, I mean, the iPhone is the world's single most popular camera, right? So improvements in that department, functionally, I mean, the quality of images has never been better from a ease of use standpoint. It's never been easier to create a high quality image, and that's only going to get, again, iPhone cameras are the worst they'll be right now. They're only going to improve, and it's quite literally a miracle. I mean, I like to think about, when the iPhone came out, we're almost at 20 years at this point, but even going 10 years back to 2015, with the 5S, I think the 6 may have not been out yet. Don't quote me on that. But the iPhone 5S, and think about, that from that to the 16 Pro, just the sheer amount. But the thing is like, at the time, the iPhone 5S was not a slouch either. That was also a very capable device. So to think about that leap forward in terms of overall camera quality, and just, between the studio mic upgrade, whatever the heck studio means, right? But, between the microphone upgrades and the camera upgrades and all the, the quality of life upgrades, the functional technology inside of these things has gotten exponentially better. Even in the last 10 years. So, kind of like AI, we forget, the pace of phone innovation, because, there's even arguably more impressive things that are happening even faster, but that's just in the backdrop of, really how powerful these things are with, just any other, subsection of technology, right? So, something to really, think about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, tech progresses every year. I mean, it's also impressive. I am waiting for an update from Apple about the SOS features and the satellite connectivity. I mean, speaking of that, the last couple of years, if you're in a remote area, you need to send a text. It's an emergency, or honestly, not even an emergency. You just want to update your location on Find My Friends, or you just want to send a quick text out. You can do so. You can, with the satellite. And so again, another innovation that I would expect. We already know T-Mobile and Starlink are working on a partnership, right? So we could have a terminal, and maybe the ability in the near future to have a little, I think it'll come as a case. My prediction is it might not come built into a phone, but imagine if SpaceX sold an iPhone case, and you could pay, a little add-on extra to get connectivity where you don't get cell reception. Is that worth it? And then eventually, obviously, that tech will shrink down and eventually be built into the phone. But yeah, I fully anticipate maybe this coming out probably in the next 5 years, maybe even the next 3 if we're lucky. Because right now, of course, you need the receiver the dish that's a lot larger, even the mini one. So yeah, whether it's camera tech or antennas, satellite connectivity, it's really improving all the time. So super, super fascinating stuff. And yeah, can't wait to have the updates
Well,
as they come out.
it's pretty funny, but that's a good segue into Amazon's latest project, Kuiper, sending satellites into orbit in sort of direct competition with our friends over at SpaceX. So today,
Yeah.
or yesterday, at this point, the first batch of 27 satellites from Amazon's project Kuiper launched into low Earth orbit. So that kind of marks a milestone for perhaps the expansion of competition with our friends over at SpaceX.
Yeah.
So, this kind of comes, 3 weeks after the first attempt was called off due to the weather. We had great weather for this launch, and apparently it seems like it was a success. All of these satellites were deployed successfully, and they were able to essentially use an onboard electronic propulsion system to navigate into their final orbit about 392 miles above the Earth's surface.
Wow. Well, yeah, we need competition. SpaceX has been great, but I think I want to know how they're going to deal in the future when some of these satellites need to be retired. Woo, there's going to be a lot of space junk out there very soon. I think that's yeah, space.
Well, that's
is getting cluttered.
that's a
Believe it
good
or
point.
not.
Essentially, and obviously this is a far cry from SpaceX, which has over 7,000 Starlinks in orbit right now. But essentially, Amazon has plans to put just above 3,200 by mid 2029 in orbit, and with half by mid of next year. So,
Yeah.
Essentially, and quote unquote, Amazon has even made arrangements for 3 launches using SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. So, timelines are tight. But it seems as though it may pay off. At least, the CEO, Andy Jassy, says that it could be a quote, fourth pillar supporting the company's overall business model. Remains to be seen. It's a very large expense, obviously. Not cheap to go to space yet. So yeah, essentially, this is real competition.
Well, so I'm looking up how to sign up for this. It's a little unclear right now when the service would launch. So obviously, they need to get the satellites into space first, and then eventually, I would imagine they'll sell the terminal, the dish that connects to their network. I don't think they have. It doesn't look like they have any public sort of launch date for that. I think right now it's simply just, obviously it will be a Starlink competitor. This was also in CNET the other day, just like a couple of days ago. It is. It has the potential. It looks like 400 megabytes per second, megabits per second, excuse me. And Starlink is only up to 100. So theoretically, this could be a faster service. It does also look that commercial terminals can go even faster, up to 1 gigabit. So again, this is satellite connectivity at 1 gigabit speeds, um, which is crazy. So obviously, they're rolling it out this year. I think maybe they claim by the end, it says we plan to begin rolling out Project Kuiper commercial service next year. This was in last year, so December last year. This was the quote: starting with service demonstrations for our earliest enterprise customers, then consumer beta testing later in the year. So they claim maybe by the end of 2025, consumer beta testers might be invited to sign up and have access. So it looks like maybe this year, some consumers will be invited. Is that what you're seeing as well? It's very interesting
Well,
to see.
timeline's a little hazy. So again, kind of another believe it while I see it. I mean, honestly, it's like I don't. It kind of blows my mind a little bit, at least with project management, because I don't think any timeline for anything has really been. It's almost easier to sort of say like what timeline has actually been accurate for a large scale tech project. And not to say there's a lack of innovation, but I think there's a lack of realistic promises, perhaps. But again, it seems like I don't know how many satellites will be needed to kind of onboard customers. I would say it seems like maybe by mid 2026, they'll kind of reach a uh, critical point, with half of the satellites in orbit, and that's even if they don't request an extension, which is entirely possible for their launch.
Yeah.
So again, it's something where we'll have to wait and see, as with everything. But it's kind of something that, again, competition's good, and with all due time, it'll come. Amazon isn't exactly a shallow pocket startup. Um,
Oh
so
no.
they're probably going to accomplish this. I mean, they have a big they have a big back end as far as the wallet goes, when we're talking about the back end. So um yeah, I don't doubt their success. But the timeline, again, I'll believe it when I see it, in that department.
It is important. I mean, it is important to have competition, and they need to get out in the market also because, again, like terrestrial, internet services, I really feel like if everybody's on the same provider and, again, you have bottlenecks or you have service disruptions, again, having another alternative is really important. So I do think that, and maybe even a faster one. Maybe this will be the fastest. But again, I think they really need to start addressing the longevity of this and the sustainability because eventually there will be too much space junk, right? There really will be too much of it. When you've got SpaceX, they're probably gonna. Again, I'm not looking it up right now, but I would not be surprised if this year they're updating older satellites. I mean, they have to keep that constellation like rotating. So they're going out and knocking them into low Earth orbit so they just burn up into our atmosphere. I mean, or what? They just remain junk in the it's either way, it's a little crazy to think about that. What if it doesn't burn up the whole way coming back? I mean, again, these are questions like you don't know. I mean, maybe they've tested it, maybe they think it happens 99% of the time. But what about newer generations of satellites? What if, they're more resistant, more durable, last longer? Like you're going to have a space junk problem. One way or the other, as Amazon now gets in the game, you still have, you still have the old players as well. Like they haven't stopped just because SpaceX and Amazon is entering. I mean, it's crazy. So, um, and Garmin, they're still, partnering with, I guess, are they still partnered with, is it Iridium? I don't know. But
Yeah, no, I think they have that. Their their devices. I'm not too familiar. But that does sound familiar. As
yeah,
far as
they have their.
between those two words, right?
I don't want to misspeak. Let me look up real quick. But yeah, no, 100%. It's yeah, wow. Let's see. Yep, Iridium. I was right. Hey. So, but
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, so you've got the traditional, satellite networks, and you've got, these modern ones, and you're gonna have a space junk problem. So hopefully they can fix that just as fast as they're willing to put these satellites up. And if there's not a plan for it, before more players get involved, they really have to, think about this. Because eventually, what if they really do have missions to Mars, right? I mean, what are the chances you're going to hit a low Earth orbit satellite? I don't know. Got to break through that little belt of junk. Think about it. I mean, they're going to have problems one way or the other, whether it's more satellite companies that have problems with collisions, or whether you have, your spaceships that then go up to Mars or the moon or whatever missions they're doing. And it's just, oh, they hit a satellite and, didn't survive. Oops. Like someone's got to figure that out.
Well, and that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Honestly, I'm excited for Amazon. But
It's exciting.
I need like a button for this or something, but time will tell, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And then I'm sure there'll be more players. Launching more innovative things. So fascinating stuff. Uh yeah. Anything else we should hit this episode that we didn't already? Any other news of the day? Do we have any DMs? Any requests for right now that we didn't touch on? I don't think so. I
Let's
know
check
you're
out.
usually on our.
Yeah,
So yeah.
we got nothing. One thing though to say,
Yeah.
iPhone 4 came out this day 14 years ago. So perhaps the most iconic
Wow.
iPhone, one of the last to be launched by Steve Jobs, center of controversy and a huge leaking
Huh.
incident from Gizmodo. The iPhone 4 was iconic.
Wow.
And shout out to that.
Wow. Well, speaking of satellites, before we end today's episode, I think we really should end on Reflect Orbital. Okay. I know this sounds crazy, but they just raised $6.5 million, led by Sequoia Capital, to provide sunlight after dark. And you heard that correctly. I know this sounds crazy, but this is a Santa Monica based company that is bringing sun to the darkness. You can order sunlight on demand. And this sounds like a joke, but it's really not.
No, we'll do anything to
So
avoid building nuclear power plants. It's incredible. We will build mirrors in
right.
space to reflect sun to a solar panel. It's just like, I'm sorry, this is just ridiculous. I mean, it's like, because PV panels are like 30% efficient, in general. So it's like it's just it's bizarre. But hey, if somebody's giving them money, I mean, it's just like,
You can order sunlight. This is crazy, right? You can order sunlight. So for any of our listeners on YouTube right now, just showing a little bit here about what Reflectal Orbit is doing. And yeah, these are mirrors that are reflecting sun. So their website's pretty nifty. So again, this is just another example of something that's reflecting sunlight and cluttering up the space and cluttering our orbit. So yeah, it'll be very, very fascinating stuff here. So yeah, ReflectOrbital here trying to do something crazy. And maybe providing energy solutions as well. The need for, hey, you want solar at night? Okay, well, we'll reflect some of that sunlight so that you can still power your solar panels. So pretty crazy stuff to stay updated about.
Crazy indeed.
We're here every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Don't forget to visit our website, techtalklive.xyz. Sign up for our mailing list. You'll get updates after our shows. And yeah, follow us on the socials, tech_talk_live on X. And yeah, we're here every week. So
And
join the
LinkedIn.
conversation. Oh, LinkedIn, yeah. What else? We're on Instagram, Tech Talk Live, tech.talk live show. Anyway, we have, we're here doing the things, So anyway, for anybody that wants to follow the show, please do so. Awesome. And yeah, anywhere you get your podcasts, of course. So yeah, signing off for tonight.